We gather, my family in Christ, joined today by members of the Credit Union fraternity and members of the Psychological Association on their respective weeks and times of Thanksgiving, forward thinking. And I want to suggest that the themes by both of these associations are apt themes for consideration today, and somehow want to fuse these two themes: growing up under the broken trident and making an authentic difference. I believe that we are encouraged, growing up under the broken trident, to embrace change, to be courageous, and to be committed. Yet it is the theme of the credit union that piques our interest most: making an authentic difference. For you see, beloved in Christ, the whole idea of being authentic is that one is genuine, not fraudulent, not counterfeit, but one is conforming to fact. And because we are genuine, we are worthy of trust. Because we are genuine and we are authentic, we are worthy of reliance. Because we are authentic, we are worthy of belief. It is this which characterizes the writer of this letter. For the Apostle Paul was now under house arrest. He was nearing the end of his life. And rather than putting his foot up and calling it quits, he continues in ministry to encourage another young person, to encourage another man. And I believe that we are all called today to be more encouraging to each other. Our world is filled with so many people who can point out the problems and put each other down and find fault in each other. But we need more persons who can be there to simply encourage each other, uplift each other, and push each other to be the best under God that we can be. So we find the apostle writing to another young man. He's writing to him to encourage him. He's writing to him because in a little while he will die and this young man will be all alone. He's writing to him because he has the experience to understand the things that are yet still to happen. He's writing because he knows that the work is rough. He's writing because he understands that when you are serving and living for God, you will got plenty problems. Yet he's writing to tell him, don't give up. So I want to encourage everybody this morning on the three simple thoughts: don't give up. I believe, firstly, the Apostle Paul encourages all of us not to give up because, first and foremost, we need to keep our head on at all times. We need to keep our head on at all times. He's writing to Timothy and he says to him, and he reminds him in chapter 3, Timothy, they are evil men. He reminds him, he says, the impostors will get worse and worse. There will be deceit and people will keep on being deceived. He outlines for him not only that, you will encounter the fact that persons will gather for themselves people and teachers for their itching ears. In other words, they will find people who would only tell them what they want to hear. And you and I both know that there are many people out there who only want yes people around them. As soon as you have to tell somebody something or to correct somebody, everybody flying up, everybody know bad words, everybody could tell you where you come from, everybody got this to say, and everybody is now their own boss, and everybody wants to run their own lives. Yet he says to him, keep your head on, young man. We are in a society, the mere fact that in a twinkling of an eye, I can now be broadcasting right around the world, and now everybody talking about the one eyebrow. I don't know, I was the big thing now. In a twinkling of an eye, you can move from an audience of one to an audience of millions, and somehow we could get beside ourselves. Our heads can become inflated, and just because we know that we can have followers and likes and tweets and everybody viewing our pages, we can't forget that there's a time we need to stay focused and keep our heads on. Some of us, we are in positions of trust. And there are persons, can I talk to the credit union and even those who are in the association? I don't know if you experience, but there are always people who would want to get your position. Maybe it don't happen with you, but I mean, even in the church, you could imagine that people would do all sorts of stuff to get you out of your position and say all kinds of stuff. And in that moment, when you let your guard down, when you just don't stay focused, you could end up making a mess of stuff. He says to Timothy, young man, I beg you, please, you must learn to keep your head on. You're young, you may be exalted, you may do wondrous things. Everybody wants to call your name, everybody likes to ask your advice, but there are persons out there who just want you to fall. Can I tell somebody today, keep your head on? There are some young people who are going to school, and can I tell you, I remember going to school and persons teasing me because you get 100 and they only get 50. Or somehow they see you studying and when everybody else playing and they pick on you, or the teacher call you and they make fun. But we have to learn how sometimes not to take on everything that somebody says. I remember my grandmother always saying to me, you don't have to respond to everything somebody says. But we have become that sort of people that think that because somebody say a thing, we need to automatically respond. Can I tell the church, keep your head? He says to him, listen, they would want to get some people around them. And the word he uses here, he says, is almost like be sober. Be sober. Make good judgments. Don't take anything for granted. My mother is here, and I can tell you she worked with taxes and stuff and accounts, Sister Juliet, so you know you're all very thorough. Always checking and asking the questions and this and that and the third and the fourth. And one of the things I remember, she would quiz me about something and she would say, no, but you have to go through and look at it again. And I would get frustrated because I didn't think that. I said, look, this is the end result, just let me accept that. But as an investigator, you begin to understand, hey, it's not just the end result that matters. Sometimes you need to trace the steps. And sometimes we don't take the time to be consistent in the little things. Paul is writing to Timothy and he's saying to him, I'm not worried about the big occasions. I'm worried about the fact that it is in that moment when you think nobody is watching that you can do something that messes everything up. It is in that moment when the pressure is on you because it's somebody who you know that asks you to turn a blind eye or do something, you can mess everything up. It is in that moment when even you're feeling weak and you are tired and you know you should really stop and go at it again, that sometimes you push through that you can mess things up. He says, listen, take your time, be sober, keep your head on. It speaks to a sense of moral alertness. And we are in a season and in a community where more and more the moral rightness and moral fabric is being questioned. Persons no longer have similar frameworks that we used to have growing up. And so we are engaging a people who do not think and reason the way many of us reason. And rather than condemning them or judging them, we need to enter their world and to understand how a person who never went to church when they were growing up, how they think. And they're not any worse than anybody else, but they're still possibly children of God, made in the likeness and image of God. And we have to encounter and to engage. Can I tell you, this requires a sense of moral alertness. Yet I want to encourage somebody. He says, keep your head on. It means to stay calm. We have become so easily flustered, quick to snap. I was watching some young people the other day, and one of the young ones said something to the other, and the first thing anybody do is start to raise their hand to slap the ex-person. It's almost like if once it is something you just don't like, you ready to just. And he says, no, sometimes we need to learn just to be calm. Take a moment. I remember watching Sesame Street, and it was like count sheep. I used to laugh at it, but then you understand that the whole idea was sometimes, can you train and develop yourself to just take that moment? I was told many times as I was in college, we were reminded that even as pastors, sometimes, people can come and say things right to your very face. And right in that moment, in the heat of your emotions, 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen first. First point, if we are going to not give up, keep your head on at all times.